Okay, Mark, you have the floor.
Okay. So can you see my screen on the other side?
Yes, we can.
All right, so good. So what we are basically going to do is to continue from where we stopped last week. And today, what we are basically doing today is we'll see how we can improve. Well, we'll see how we can do what is known as DAX. DAX is DAX, known as Data Analysis Expression. The simple way to look at DAX is basically the programming aspect of Power BI. That's just the simplest way. So I just want to avoid all the theoretical definition and explanation, right? So that's the easiest way.
Is it data analysis, what expression or what?
Yeah, data analysis expression.
All right.
Thank you. Data analysis expressions. That's what DAX means. DAX. Capital D, capital A, capital X. So it's the programming part of Power BI. So basically, the DAX is used to create a more efficient analysis, right? Efficiency in terms of speed, efficiency in terms of the volume of the data, right? So when you write a DAX expression, the volume of the data it carries is basically lesser, right, than when you are creating a column using add column from Power Query and all of that, right? So that's the point behind DAX. And usually there's a part of it, you don't need to know a lot of it because the learning journey is progressive, because anything programming has to be progressive because it's not very easy, like that. So it's something you learn, you continue to learn and improve, right? And then you can know Power BI without knowing so much of DAX, right? So you can be confident that you can tell someone you know Power BI confidently without knowing so much of DAX, right? Because there's a lot you can do with little or without DAX, right? But as your learning progresses, it is expected that you increase your knowledge on DAX and other aspects of Power BI, right? So Power BI is basically a mix of UI and then programming, right? Yeah. So basically, those are the two things we will do. DAX, and then we'll improve our visuals. So I'm going to start with DAX, right? And I'm going to show us how we can apply that in creating a couple of things, right? So in Power BI, there is what is known as measures. Measures. So measures are basically how we write DAX, right? They are basically what we use to write most of the DAX. So for instance, we are now on the report view, right? If you go to the table view, you are still going to find, so I've explained a lot of these ribbons, right? You're still going to find new measure, quick measure, new column, new table, right? And then if we go to the report view, so in our last class, I was supposed to return back to where we are supposed to connect the tables, right, to each other, because the tables had issues in connection because there was a row, there was a particular table that was not proper, where the headers were not properly named, right? And then we corrected it, and I was supposed to come back to show us how we can then connect the tables accurately, right? But from the look of things, Power BI has done that automatically, right? So, but not always that Power BI does it automatically that is correct. So most of these things you need to go back and check and see if they are correctly connected, right? So we have our other details here, and then If I keep the mouse on the connection string, you realize that the connection columns are highlighted, right? So other details and pizza are connected on pizza ID. If I go to others, you will see that others table, other details table are connected on other ID, right? Yeah, I think this, yes, other ID. Yes, so if I come this way, you will see that, yes, you will see that pizza table and pizza type ID, sorry, pizza table and pizza types table are connected on pizza type ID, right? So I think basically these are all the connections that we need to do. And Power BI has done this automatically. If there's anything you need to do manually, so you go through the tables and look which table and which table has common columns, common column names. You look at the common column names on every table and try to connect all the tables on the common columns they have. Basically, that's the idea. So as you do this, you are basically relating the tables, and this gives you the ability to create a report that is very interactive, right? So yeah, so we are going to start with measures. If you want to create measures, which is, I said, is the way to create DAX, you're just going to come here. So you can do that on the report view, right? You can do that on the table view, and you can do that on the model view, right? But I'm going to do it from the table view, and basically the reason is so that I can be able to be seeing my tables, and if there's any changes, it's easier for me to see it from here. And then I can equally see this from the report view by basically bringing the measures into a visual and then seeing the effect, right? So new measure. So what kind of measure can we create? So the last time we created a revenue column, right? So we can create this revenue as a measure instead of a column, right? So this is how to do it. So let's call it revenue with a capital R, right? To show the difference between the other revenue, which has a smaller R. So there's a keyword, or there's a function called count or count rows, right? So they basically have the same function. So we are going to use count row. So if you have this suggestion, you will just use your tab, and then it's going to insert it. And then the next thing, now we are counting. Basically, we are using sum, not count, because we need to know, we want to know the sum of the revenue, right, in the data. So what are we basically summing? We are basically summing the revenue. Yes. So sorry, I think I made a mistake in my explanation, right? So this is the revenue column, right? So if we want to know the total revenue, right, we are going to basically sum the revenue column. But there is another way to do it, which I have done before, and I placed it on a card visual. But this time around, I'm basically going to use a measure to find the total revenue. So let's call it total. Let's call it total revenue, right? And then sum is a function you use basically to find the sum of a column. So if we use the enter key, yes, so we have it here, and you can see on the leftmost side, there's a visual. that basically, that visual basically is when you have measures, it will show when you have measures, right? So now we have the sum of our total revenue. So let's go and check. Already we have revenue here, and which is 818, right? 818,000, right? So to see whether our revenue from the measure worked, we're just going to use a new card visual, and then we will insert the total revenue we created using the measure and see if it is going to be the same with the one we created using visuals, right? So card visual, you will see 1, 2, 3 on it. And then we are just going to tick our total revenue. So we have 817.86. If you can remember what we did last time, we basically rounded it to avoid the decimal part. So there is format your visual, and then we go to decimal. Let's use 0 and see. Yes. So this has basically rounded, and we have our whole number. So our measure is confirmed to be correct, right? So, and so in Power BI generally, measures are the best practice, right? Using measures are the best practice. So instead of using a visual and then using a sum on the visual, if you can remember how we did it last time, right? Basically, we have, so I'm just going to repeat this so that you see how we did it last time. So we have the card visual, and then we go to the revenue here, right? So automatically Power BI has summed it, right? And has given us 818 already. So this is more or less like an automatic summing, right? But measures are usually the best practice. So if you're going to do this, it is advisable to use measures instead of allowing Power BI to do this automatic summing, right? So the more you avoid anything automatic, the better, right? So non-automatic basically gives you the power and control over all your visuals and analysis, right? So yeah, not like the automatic is bad, right? But sometimes you may want to have more control and all of that, or probably avoid any possible error from any automatic computation. So we're going to get rid of the one with the automatic sum and take this back. Okay, what I'm going to do, if I want the cards to be the same size, I'm just going to duplicate this. Control D. This is not duplicate. Well, it doesn't seem to be duplicating. So I'm going to add a new card visual and then take our total revenue from the measures, and it's there, and then take it to format it and take out the decimal part, 0. Good. So we basically have measure. So we can do the same thing to the sum of quantity, and this sum, right, is in some sense, if we are going to count quantity, right, it's going to be count and not sum. So basically, this computation is it wrong? Yeah. So yeah. So let's experiment. Let me go to my okay. Let me go to new measure. Yep. So let's experiment. Yeah, so it's actually correct. So we want quantity, right? Let's call it total. Let's call it total quantity. And then we're going to use the same sum. And then let's find our quantity. Yep. Then we close the bracket and hit the enter button. Yeah, so now we have quantity. Let's go and confirm this. A new card visual, new card visual, and then total quantity. Yep. So we have 50, right? So this is basically correct. So we are going to replace this with the measure. Like I said, using measures is basically the best practice for many reasons that I highlighted. Yep. So we can do the same to price. So we're still going to apply the sum function, and then that's it. Yep. So new measure, sum of price, total. Yeah, we're still going to use a sum. Sum, what are we summing? We're summing the price. Yep. So we have this, we hit enter, we go to the reports and confirm. Click a new card visual, and then total sum of price. Yep. Is it correct? No. Sum of price is, let's check. New card. No. New card visual, total sum. Well, something must be wrong somewhere. So something must be wrong somewhere, right? Total sum of price. Yeah, we have the correct figure now. So let's take out the decimal part. Yep, and then replace this. Yeah, so basically this is it, right? And then the next thing we are going to do is usually when you are calculating measures, you're expected to have them contained in a particular, let's say, have them in the same container, right? Kind of something like a folder, right? So the how to do that is to basically create a table and then have these measures in the table, right? So they have a folder you can always refer to. So instead of being confused, where did I actually create this measure? You already know where it is. It is in a particular folder, and this folder is where you find all the measures, right? So to do that, we are just going to create a table. Let's go to the data view. Yes, so we need enter data. So on the report view, um, we have something enter data to create a table. So if you click on it, it's going to give you, you're going to get a pop-out, and then let's call this measures, and then load it. So if you can check on the data view, data pane on the right, you can see that we have something called measures. And then looks like this is like the second measure, in Power BI. So usually measures, the word measures is a reserved word in Power BI. So if you are going to create another word called measure, you have to find a way to rename it. If not, it's going to carry these two, right? So we are going to rename. To rename, you are simply going to right click and rename. And then let's just let's put a hashtag in front, right? So now the second thing to do now is to move all our measures into this table or folder, if we like, and then, yep. Yeah, so currently our total quantity is highlighted and we need to move it to the measures. So to do that, we're going to do that on the report view still. So to do that, you are going to go to the left side. You find two boxes where you see total quantity and other details. So this is where basically you're going to do the movement. And then what we want to do now is we want to move total quantity. We want to move, yeah, so we already have our total quantity highlighted here, right? But we don't want it in other details table. We want it in measures, right? So when you do that, it moves straight away to the measures, right? And then this is it. When you expand the measures table, you see the total quantity. When you collapse it, it disappears. And then we have another column, which is named column 1. But this is this is a generated column by Power BI. So we basically don't need it. We can just get rid of it. To do that, you just click on, there is like 3 ellipses on the right side. You click on it and find where to delete it. So delete from model, and then the column goes. So the next thing is to move the other measures to the measure table. So it's the same process. You highlight on the measure you want to move, and then you come down here. There's a drop down. You choose that of measure, and then it moves. I think we have one last measure, total sum of price. We go and highlight it. We go back to where we want it to belong, choose measure, and then it moves. So now we have all our measures in the same table, right? And yep. Yes, this is 1. Yeah, so that's it. So the next thing, we are just going to do a couple of more measures, and then we move to the design aspect. So new measure. So what we need to do now is we want to check our revenue based on, if you remember, we have different categories of pizza, and the categories include something like classic. Let me go to this is the table. Yes. So we have the category includes something like classic, chicken, supreme, and veggie, right? These are basically 4 classes. And what we want to do now, we want to check total revenue, right? But we want to streamline the total revenue based on chicken, right? So this is like a form of filtering. You're filtering your total sales or revenue of the company, not on every category of item you sell, but on a particular item, right? And this time we're choosing chicken. So we're going to see how we're going to do that now. So to do that, let's go back to our table view and then go to new measure. So we want revenue by revenue by chicken cat, right? Chicken category. And so there is a function called calculate. So this function, right, calculates, it basically evaluates an expression in a context modified by filters. So if you want to do any form of DAX analysis involving filters, right, you will have to use this calculate, right? Basically, that's the format. And now the criteria of our filter is chicken, right? So what are we calculating? We are calculating, let's go to the category table, is called pizza types. Expression. Okay. So yeah, total revenue, and then filter. What are we filtering? The pizza type table. Yep. But we are filtering it based on chicken. So we do pizza. We are filtering it based on the category chicken, right? So we have our category, and we need it to filter based on chicken. Yep. So we need, yeah, good. So we don't have an error. So this is going to work. So like I said, right, the filtering criteria is category chicken, right? So this DAX is going to calculate the revenue, but based on the category chicken. Enter. So after this, you can basically go and check the report view, use the card visual, and then check for revenue by chicken cat. So this is what we have. So we have 195,000.92. If you round this, you're going to get 196. Yes. So based on the chicken category, 196,000 revenue was realized, right? So like we saw the last time, when we did sum of revenue by category, we realized that the classic chicken category is actually the most subscribed pizza category, and then followed by supreme, and then chicken, and then veggie, right? So in the chicken category, the sales realized was 196,000. Yeah, so you can use the same code and then apply it to classic, apply it to supreme, right? You can basically use the same logic and apply it to, let's say, the size of the pizza, right? So we have that there. Let's do something else. Another thing. Yeah, so let's use let's do it based on size, right? Yes, so new measure. So what size are we picking now? Let's say L, which is large. Let's go back to the table. Let's go back to the table. Yes, so on the table, we have about 5 sizes. We have L, we have M, we have S, we have XL, and we have XXL. So now we want to check the revenue for large, and we want to see what did actually this size of pizza generate to the company, right? And yeah. So usually a lot of these analysis, you do them based on company requirements or based on company KPI. You don't just go on Power BI if you're actually working for a company, right? But if you're doing this for practice, you can basically design your own KPI or design your own goals and what you want to see, right? And then, but if you're working with a company, you build report based on the requirements of management, right? What is the interest of management? What do they actually want to see? How does the company measure their progress? Is it based on profit? Is it based on customer satisfaction? What are the most important metrics of progress in the company? And what are the metrics that makes the company begin to realize that they have to improve on certain areas, right? To maybe optimize profit. Probably they need to improve on their customer satisfaction. Yeah, probably they need to hire more customer attendants, or probably they need to involve a lot more technology. Yes, so these are different ways, right? You can generate insights and then make recommendations for business operations, right? So let's go to new measure. And then we are checking for revenue. Revenue by size. So if you are doing this at home, right, and make sure that your texts are consistent. If you are using a case that is capitalizing each first letter, be consistent. If you are using smaller case across, every measure or every new column you are creating, just find a way to be consistent. And then if you're using underscore in between your variables, be consistent. You can see I'm not consistent. So this is like a live recording. So I may likely miss out a lot of these things. So if you're at home and you are not, nobody's watching you, right? You can take your time and be consistent with a lot of these things. So this makes it easier for readability and makes your work looks good. So calculate, right? Tab, and then the expression here, we are looking for revenue, total revenue tab, and then we are filtering. We are filtering based on what table is the size. The size is on order details, right? Order details, right? And then we're filtering the order details according to the size, and the size is L. So this is a text. L is a text entry. Is not a numeric entry. So you are going to have to use these double quotes to indicate that this is a text entry, right? So you can't use these double quotes on the either side for numeric values, right? So L, and our L is a capital letter. So that's it. We close all of the brackets. Sorry, there's a mistake there. Yes. So our work looks good. No error at all. Yeah, our work looks good, no error at all. And yeah, so there is what is known as IntelliSense, right, in Power BI. So anytime you are trying to type, let's go back. Let me clean this. So let's say you type calculate, right? Power BI makes an effort to begin to make suggestions for you, right? And then when you begin to start to want to insert your expressions and all the things that you need, Power BI begins to make suggestions of what parameters you need to insert into what you are computing, right? So sometimes you have to make reference to these parameters. They help. They are like a guide. So as you are doing this, more or less like a help to make work easier for you, right? So we're going to still do the same thing again. Total revenue, right? Yep. Comma, we are filtering based on what table, based on order details. Yep. So the order details is based on the column size. We go to size, and then what size is it? We use our double quotes with size L in between. We close the first bracket, which is for the filter. The second bracket, we close it, which is for the calculate. So if your computation has an error, Power BI is going to show it to you, right? Yeah, you're going to see that there are errors. Obviously, it will show. So, but from what we can see, there is basically no error here. And Power BI is saying that we are good to go. So we're just going to enter this. And then, so I created this measure in the order details table, right? But this measure is supposed to be in the measure table, right? So the same process we did before, we're just going to move it over to the measures. So by any time you are creating a measure, it is expected that you highlight on the measure table and then create your measure there. So if you create your measure there, it is automatically going to find its way into the table, right? So we're going to move this because we need all the measures in same place. Measures, yep. Yeah, it has moved, right? Yeah, so let's go back to our report. So this is the time where we begin to make our report looks good. So I'm going to add some visual. Okay. I'm going to add some visual, and I'm going to add, let me add revenue. Let me add all the revenue based on chicken and size. And then after that, we are going to just improve on our report, right? So these are basically going to be card visuals. And then another one. Revenue by size, yes. So revenue by size L is over 300,000. So we are going to round this. So like I said, based on company requirements, sometimes you may not be allowed to round. Probably the company wants to say the other side of the decimal for whatever reason. So before you create a report, usually there's you have to liaise with the management or stakeholders of the company. If you are working with a consultancy, usually you are going to have a meeting with the management and they will provide you with their KPIs or their requirements. And then from there, you have an idea of how reports are created. So you're going to ask all the questions you need to ask. They should provide you with a data dictionary. And aside that, you should carry out quality assessment. So some data cleaning processes has to be done with context, and that context is an information provided by the company. So you don't just clean data based on what you think, you clean data based on how it's going to be, how it's going to help the company or how the company looks at it, right? So the methodologies you apply to taking away missing values, do you just delete the entire row in the table or do you replace it with another value, right? Probably the company may suggest, okay, I'll replace it with a particular value, right? Or they may tell you you can choose whatsoever value you can. Basically, they may tell you to use your discretion. Well, most of the time, right, it is expected that you work with their suggestions, right? So during data cleaning or maybe quality assessment, these are the things you do, right? You don't just pick a data from a company or maybe connect to the company's database. In fact, some companies are not going to allow you access to their database because, I mean, data is very important. So companies are careful about data privacy concerns, data breach, and there are personal people's data in some database. So you can't use it without consent. So, and then the time period you use a particular data also, you have to collect consent for it. You don't just, I mean, in Nigeria, these things may not be serious, but when you move across, to places like first world countries, these things are serious concerns. In fact, in public, you don't just take people's picture and then, put it on Facebook or any other public platform, right? Without consent, you can be sued for it. So yeah, so what I'm going to do, so on this slide, sum of revenue by time, I'm going to, usually some of these visuals, they come with grid lines. And we don't need these grid lines. It doesn't improve our visuals. So you have to get rid of grid lines on your visuals. And then, yes. Grid lines switched off. This is grid lines from, okay. All right, so they are vertical and horizontal grid lines. You just get rid of them. Switched off. This is a vertical, this is a horizontal grid line. Switch it off. And yep, same here. Switch it off. Yep, this is the first step. So on this first slide, what can we do to it? So we already have a title, sum of revenue by time. So, but there's another title on the y-axis. We don't actually need that information. So we're just going to take it out from there. So y-axis of, no, not the values, the title of red is gone. So we also need to do the same thing on the other visual. The title of the y-axis needs to go. Switch it off. It's not, doesn't add any ease or readability to the visual. Taking it out. What am I doing? Okay, why? Okay. Yep. So in this case, there are instances where you can also switch off the title on the x-axis because the details you need basically is on the title, right? So you don't need extra details on both the x-axis and y-axis again. So let's make an attempt to switch off the title on the x-axis and see if it's going to take out any meaningful information. Title on x-axis. Yeah, still good. X-axis, still good. X-axis title, still good. X-axis title. Still good, yeah. So even without those titles on the X and Y axis, our information, our visuals are still readable, right? Yes, so so now let's try to do some, the title on this date starts with a small letter. Let's format it to a capital, to begin with a capital letter. Let's see. So we can change this. Yep. So it now begins with a capital letter and then, yeah, so, all right. So, well, so we have a blank on one of the card visuals, right? And we don't need this blank messing around with our visual, with our report. So we need to get rid of this blank, right? We have not done any strategic method in taking away this blank. But in this case, what we are going to do basically is going to the tables and ensuring that we clear all the blanks from the table, right? So that is going to also take out the blanks here because we shouldn't be having blanks in our data, right? So if you do a thorough data cleaning, if you do a thorough data cleaning to your data, you should not be expecting blanks because you are expected to either delete the blank across the row, or replace the blanks with certain values, right? But they should not be appearing in your report. So in this case, the simplest method I'm going to use to solve this problem is basically going through the data, clicking on, so you can see on the other details table, the first column, we have the first, on the values on the first column, we already have a blank. So what we can do is to clear all filters. Let's do this in Power Query, edit query. Yep. So yeah, good. So we're basically going to remove empty, and it will take away all the empty row. So the method here is that is basically going to take away the entire row across the table. And then let's see the next. Do we have blank here? No blank. Here, no blank. No blank. Let's go to the next table and check for blanks. No blanks. No blanks. Here, I think there are also no blanks here. Next table, no blanks here. Okay, let's see if this will take out the blank. We have taken out the blank, we have applied it. Let's go back to our report. It's still here. We need to still, let's go back and just a minute. Okay. Edit query. So I'm just going to be removing empties and see, probably they exist, but I'm unable to see them.
Uh, I think the blank is gone. It's disappeared, all right?
Yeah, it's gone. Not really. So what I did was that data was like a filtered data. So the blank appeared. Yeah, you can see it, right? It's a
Yes,
filtered
yeah,
data.
yeah.
Probably. So what I think here, probably there is no data at all for this. For chicken, I think there is probably no data for this. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm actually correct. I'm on the classic category, right? So we should not be expecting any data for chicken. This is a classic category, right? So, and then what we did here on this card visual is basically revenue for the chicken category. So if we are selecting the classic category, it should not reflect any revenue on the chicken category card visual, right? Except if we go to chicken, then chicken will appear. Veggie will give us blank, yeah, and then Supreme will give us blank, and then classic will give us blank. Yep, so I think we are on course. So let's yeah, so you can start from your background, your canvas background. You can change it to, let's say, a relatively darker gray. Yep, and then the visuals, we can have some kind of lighter gray. Let me see. What area background? No, data labels. Yeah. So these are data labels, right? Data labels are basically, they're telling you the quantity of the, for instance, this bar chart, what is the quantity of this particular column of data, right? So it's basically putting the label, the quantity number to the bars, right? So we can decide to change these bars to something. All right, so what we'll do is, let's make this background to be, let's change this bar to dark. And then let's make this background to disappear. No, not what I want. Effects, background. Yeah, background is gone, right? So let's yeah, so what I'm doing, right, there's what is known as Format Painter. So what Format Painter does is, if you want to apply the format of a particular visual on another visual, right, you use the Format Painter. You go to the visual you want to copy, and then you format, you pick up the format, and then you go to apply it where you want to apply it, right? So that's basically what I did here. So I need the sum of revenue by category kind of format replicated on all the other visuals, right? So what I'll do is I'll go to the sum of revenue, go to where there's Format Painter, and then go to the visual I want it and apply it, and then it will change, right? So similar thing to the rest, same thing to the card visual. This here. Format. Yeah. This, yep. This, yep, right? Yeah, so this is what we have, and then we can decide to have the like an outline on each visual to show the boundaries. To do this, I think on effects, we can have shadow here, and then visual border, and then this visual border. Yes, let me see. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. So I'm equally going to have all of this splicing into all of this. Yeah, so you can see that our visual is looking a bit better, right? So this blue this blue on the sum of revenue by month name, you can decide to change it to black so that it can align with the rest, right? Yep. So let's see. Data levels. No, not here. Right. General effect. Not background. So tape. Uh, this is not giving me what I want. Not even about data result. Anyway, we'll come back to this. Let's basically just arrange our visuals, right? So I'm going to start with this. Let me add a text.
Hello, Mark.
Yeah.
Please, let's try to round up.
All right. So, designing a dashboard takes a lot of time. So this is if this was supposed to be pre-recorded, it would have been easier to do. Yep. Yeah. So make sure your cards are basically of the same size and they are well aligned. Yep. So So designing a dashboard takes a lot of time. It's usually not something you can just do in a hurry, right? Because all of the colors need to be in place, the sizes need to be in place, and then everything you do, you have to make sure it's readable for whoever is going to be checking it, right? So I'm just going to stop here. You can do this arrangement. You can make it better yourself. There's a lot of samples. That's what samples you can find on YouTube. You can also find others by just Googling, and you can decide to copy, the way they designed theirs, right? So I'm going to stop here, and then we'll end this here, right? I just hope you've gotten the entire idea behind, the design. Yep. So thank you. Ifeoma, are you there? Ifeoma, are you there? I'm done.
Yes, I'm here. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. So I'll be sending the quiz for today. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks to everyone. Okay, good night. Thank you, Mark.
All right, good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much and good night.